The room fell silent the moment the crystal glass slipped from his trembling hand and shattered across the polished marble floor. Hundreds of eyes turned toward the exhausted man standing near the entrance, his simple navy suit slightly wrinkled after a long day of work and an even longer evening of rushing across the city. Before he could apologize, the CEO's cold voice echoed through the grand ballroom, loud enough for every investor, executive, and guest to hear. In just a few cruel words, the hardworking single father was made to feel like he did not belong among the wealthy and powerful. But what happened only minutes later left the entire room speechless and reminded everyone that true greatness is measured not by wealth or titles, but by the size of one's heart. Before we continue this unforgettable story, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to channel name if you believe kindness, respect, and second chances can change someone's life forever. Your support helps us continue bringing inspiring stories like this one. The man standing near the entrance was named Rowan Mercer. At 38 years old, life had carved quiet strength into every line on his face. 5 years earlier, he had lost his wife, Maris, to a sudden illness that had shattered the peaceful future they had dreamed of together. Since that heartbreaking day, Rowan had raised their 7-year-old daughter, Ivy, entirely on his own. Every morning began before sunrise. He prepared breakfast, braided Ivy's hair using skills learned from countless online tutorials, packed her school lunch with handwritten notes of encouragement, and hurried to work before most of the city had even opened its eyes. Rowan worked as a senior systems engineer for one of the country's fastest-growing technology companies. His name rarely appeared in headlines, yet many of the products that made the company successful existed because of his quiet brilliance. He never chased recognition. He simply believed that honest work and integrity would eventually speak louder than self-promotion. His co-workers admired him because he never took credit for ideas that belonged to others and always stayed late to help younger employees solve difficult problems. What almost no one knew was how much he sacrificed every single day. His salary covered little more than rent, childcare, school expenses, and medical bills left behind after his wife's treatment. Expensive suits, luxury watches, and elite social circles belonged to another world. Rowan wore the same carefully maintained suit to every formal event because replacing it simply wasn't possible. When the invitation to the annual investor dinner arrived, Rowan almost declined. Such events usually belonged to executives and department heads. However, his manager insisted that Rowan attend because one of his revolutionary software systems would be presented as the company's newest breakthrough. Although the executives would receive most of the attention, Rowan's attendance was considered appropriate. That afternoon, everything seemed determined to go wrong. The babysitter called 30 minutes before the event to explain that her own child had become sick and she could not come. Rowan spent precious minutes calling neighbors until an elderly woman from across the hall kindly agreed to watch Ivy. Then heavy traffic trapped him for nearly an hour. When he finally arrived at the magnificent hotel, rain had soaked the lower half of his trousers during the walk from the parking garage. Inside the ballroom, elegance surrounded him. Glittering chandeliers reflected across polished floors. Soft piano music drifted through conversations between investors wearing custom-tailored suits worth more than Rowan's monthly salary. Crystal glasses sparkled beneath golden lights while servers carried beautifully arranged meals from table to table. Rowan quietly walked toward the registration desk, hoping to find his assigned seat before drawing attention to himself. Unfortunately, someone else noticed him first. The company's CEO, Victor Holden, possessed everything people associated with corporate success. His expensive suit fit perfectly. His smile appeared flawless before cameras. His speeches inspired shareholders. Yet beneath that polished image lived a man obsessed with appearances and status. Victor glanced at Rowan's damp clothing with visible disappointment. Rather than greeting one of the company's most talented employees, Victor loudly questioned whether the event staff had accidentally allowed someone from the maintenance department inside. Several nearby guests laughed nervously. Rowan politely explained that traffic and family responsibilities had delayed him. He apologized for arriving late and assured the CEO he would quietly take his assigned seat. Instead of accepting the explanation, Victor continued speaking loudly enough for surrounding investors to hear. He remarked that prestigious dinners required professionalism, not excuses, and suggested that some people simply lacked the class expected at executive gatherings. Every sentence landed like another weight upon Rowan's shoulders. He lowered his eyes, not because he believed the insults, but because he refused to create an embarrassing scene for the company he had served faithfully for over a decade. As he reached for a nearby glass of water to steady himself, exhaustion betrayed him. His hand shook slightly, causing the glass to slip and crash against the marble floor. The entire ballroom became silent. Even the musicians stopped playing. For one painful moment, Rowan wished he could simply disappear. Several investors exchanged uncomfortable looks while servers hurried forward with towels. Victor sighed dramatically before announcing that perhaps Rowan would feel more comfortable eating elsewhere because appearances mattered during meetings with international investors. The humiliation cut deeper than anyone realized. Rowan wasn't ashamed of his clothes. He wasn't ashamed of raising his daughter alone. He wasn't ashamed of sacrificing comfort for responsibility. He was only heartbroken that kindness had become so rare inside a room filled with successful people. Just as Rowan quietly turned toward the exit, another voice interrupted the silence. It belonged to Chairman Elias Whitmore. Although 82 years old, Elias remained one of the country's most respected business leaders. Unlike many executives, he rarely sought attention. He had built the company from a tiny workshop into a global corporation over 4 decades. Employees admired him because he remembered janitors' birthdays as easily as investors' names. The chairman had watched the entire exchange from across the ballroom without saying a single word. Now he slowly stood. Every conversation stopped. Every executive straightened. Even Victor's confident expression began fading. Chairman Whitmore walked across the ballroom without speaking until he reached Rowan. Then, before hundreds of stunned guests, the elderly chairman bent down and personally helped Rowan collect the broken pieces of glass. The gesture lasted only seconds. Its meaning lasted forever. After placing the final shard onto a serving tray, Elias gently placed his hand on Rowan's shoulder. He thanked Rowan for everything he had contributed to the company over the years. He praised the software system that had recently secured one of the organization's largest international contracts. Then he turned toward the audience. He explained that while many people admired successful companies, few ever noticed the quiet individuals whose sacrifice made those achievements possible. He reminded every investor that buildings could be purchased, technology could be copied, and money could always return. Character could not. Without another word, Chairman Whitmore escorted Rowan toward the front of the ballroom. There, directly beside his own chair, sat the seat traditionally reserved for the evening's most distinguished guest. Instead of occupying it himself, the chairman pulled out the chair for Rowan. An audible gasp swept across the room. Victor stood frozen. No one had ever seen the chairman surrender that seat. The symbolism was unmistakable. The chairman then addressed every guest. He shared stories unknown even to senior executives. Years earlier, Rowan had quietly donated months of paid vacation to coworkers battling serious illnesses. He had refused bonuses so struggling team members could keep their jobs during difficult financial periods. He had spent countless weekends mentoring interns without requesting compensation. Most astonishing of all, when a cyber attack threatened to destroy years of company research, Rowan had remained awake for nearly 40 consecutive hours rebuilding damaged systems, preventing losses worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Not once had he asked for recognition. Not once had he mentioned these sacrifices during performance reviews. The ballroom filled with overwhelming silence. Many investors who had laughed moments earlier now lowered their eyes in embarrassment. Chairman Whitmore continued by speaking not about profits, but about humanity. He explained that every organization eventually faced a choice between rewarding loud ambition and honoring quiet integrity. History, he said, always remembered those who chose character. Throughout dinner, the atmosphere transformed completely. Investors eagerly introduced themselves to Rowan. Several asked thoughtful questions about his work rather than his appearance. Others thanked him for reminding them that real leadership often existed far away from executive offices. For the first time in years, Rowan felt genuinely seen. Later that evening, one investor quietly asked about the photograph tucked inside Rowan's wallet. It showed little Ivy smiling beneath autumn leaves while holding a homemade paper crown. Rowan spoke about his daughter with unmistakable pride. He described early mornings making pancakes shaped like animals, helping with homework after exhausting workdays, and reading bedtime stories despite overwhelming fatigue. His words carried no complaints. Only gratitude. Many listeners found themselves unexpectedly emotional. Chairman Whitmore smiled warmly because he recognized something invaluable. The greatest success Rowan had ever achieved wasn't revolutionary software. It was raising a compassionate little girl despite unimaginable loss. Within days of the dinner, news of the chairman's extraordinary gesture spread throughout the business community. Employees began sharing their own stories about Rowan's kindness. Former interns described how he had encouraged them after failures. Maintenance workers remembered him learning every cleaner's name. Receptionists recalled birthday cards signed by Rowan each year. The company's public image shifted dramatically. People realized that its greatest asset had never been technology. It had always been people like Rowan. Meanwhile, the board of directors launched an internal review regarding executive leadership culture. Victor's treatment of employees raised difficult questions that could no longer be ignored. Months later, he quietly resigned. His replacement emphasized empathy, mentorship, and respect as core company values. Chairman Whitmore invited Rowan to help shape those cultural changes. Although offered a prestigious executive office, Rowan requested something different. He asked for expanded family support policies, better childcare assistance, flexible schedules for single parents, and stronger employee wellness programs. The board approved every proposal. Hundreds of families benefited. One rainy afternoon nearly a year later, Ivy proudly visited the company headquarters during Family Day. She skipped through hallways holding her father's hand. Employees smiled as they greeted her by name. Inside the main conference room stood a framed photograph from the investor dinner. It captured the exact moment Chairman Whitmore offered Rowan the honored seat. Below the picture appeared a simple inscription. Respect is earned through character, not status. Ivy looked at the photograph before asking why everyone admired that moment so much. Rowan knelt beside her. He explained that people sometimes judged others by clothing, money, or appearance. But truly good people looked deeper. They saw courage. They saw sacrifice. They saw love. That evening, as father and daughter walked home beneath a warm golden sunset, Rowan realized something beautiful. His wife had once worried that Ivy might grow up without enough examples of goodness after she was gone. Life had answered that fear in an unexpected way. One act of courage. One act of kindness. One elderly chairman willing to stand for what was right. Those moments had become lessons Ivy would carry forever. If this story has touched your heart so far, please like this video, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to channel name. Every interaction helps inspiring stories like this reach more people who may need a reminder that kindness still exists. Special request, tell us in the comments, have you ever witnessed someone being judged unfairly, and what happened afterward? Years passed, and Chairman Whitmore eventually retired. At his farewell ceremony, he surprised everyone by inviting Rowan onto the stage. Before thousands of employees, the chairman admitted that building a successful company had never been his greatest achievement. Finding people worthy of protecting had been. He thanked Rowan for reminding every leader that titles command authority, but humility earns respect. As the audience rose in a standing ovation, Rowan searched the crowd until he found Ivy, now older, smiling proudly with tears shining in her eyes. In that unforgettable moment, applause echoed through the hall not because a powerful executive had spoken, but because an ordinary father had proven that dignity can survive humiliation, compassion can overcome cruelty, and one person's quiet integrity can inspire an entire generation. Sometimes life allows pride to speak loudly for a moment. But eventually, kindness always finds the best seat in the room.